Mob Psycho 100 is an anime based on a manga by One, the mangaka behind One Punch Man. So I was pretty hyped to see it. Then my favorite reviewers, my friends, probably my grandma started praising the second season as one of the best anime out there, and I was even more hyped. And as I watched the first season, imagine my surprise when I found it to be...
Okay.
How could this show be so hyped, I asked myself. Then I got to the second season and I saw why. The show's quality improved substantially between the seasons. This video is not a review of Mob Psycho 100. If you came here for my viewing recommendation, then yes, go watch it and come back here. Because this video will be an essay about how writing can be improved, which means it will contain heavy spoilers for both seasons and focus mainly on the negative aspects and only skimming the positive ones. Because the great comedy, characters, dialogue and so on are really good, but they stay really good throughout the whole series and hence are not the reason for the improvement. In order to show Mob Psycho got better, I first must show its shortcomings, especially during the first season. The story follows the life of a middle schooler, called Shigeo, who seems to be one of the strongest psychics in existence. He works for Reigen, a con artist who pretends to have psychic powers and tries to use Shigeo for his own profit, but also shelter him from the outside world. Because what Shigeo has in abundance in psychic powers, he lacks in social and physical skills, which obviously makes him not too popular at school. The first season focuses on Shigeo exercising Ghost with his psychic power while Reigen gets the payout, and transitions into more of a psychic users fight psychic users storyline. This focus on psychic fights was my biggest problem with the series as a whole. Because the psychic powers are an inherently soft magic system, meaning the rules of it are not clearly defined and the writer can make stuff up basically on the spot. The fights always felt very hypey but rarely gripping. Because the psychic powers are not clearly defined, nearly every fighter brings new abilities to the table and fighters can adapt those, create new ones or just simply push themselves over the limit to become stronger. Or not, depending on which direction the story needs to go right now. Since the viewer can predict how fighters can use their powers, it is not so gripping to see how Shigeo gets beaten down by someone who can control plants, because we know that he will either learn this power or push himself to become even faster and stronger. In both cases, he will win without any setup whatsoever. If we compare that fight to fights in Avatar: The Last Airbender, the poster child for hard magic systems, it is always clear how and why a fighter wins against another one. Zuko doesn't just push himself to be stronger and redirect lightning because he thinks about his friends. No! He learns it after getting his ass handed to him from his uncle, who draws wisdom from observing waterbenders. This is the only reason why he doesn't just outright get f***ing murdered in 0.05 seconds of his fight with Ozai. We knew he spent time thinking about this problem. We saw him struggle to find the solution to this problem and then execute this specific solution. There is a setup and a payoff. While Shigeo suddenly learning how to control plants just happens on the writer's whim and never is important again in the two seasons. I'm not saying that soft magic systems never produce gripping fights, just that they require a little bit more work on the writer's part. This, coupled with the art style that I didn't like that much, and the fights as the main element of the story, made it a boring story. I am aware that liking art style is subjective and that Mob Psycho is trying to break free from the monotonous anime landscape by looking different and delivering visual comedy that isn't possible with more conventional style. But the numerous abrupt style changes ruined my immersion throughout the series. I get that compared to his crush, all other girls look like vegetables. But I don't need to see two literal vegetables running across my screen every time he sees his crush. But that's my subjective opinion, and I will show that the series improved without changing this subjective thing about itself, by objectively better writing. So, what was wrong with Mob Psycho's writing in Season 1? Honestly, not that much. It just missed out on the full potential of its premise. As I stated in my other videos, every story is a discussion about something. It doesn't matter if the discussion is nuanced and sophisticated or very black and white and minimalistic. Every story has one. Due to the length of TV series, they can have subplots related to minor themes, but the final confrontation should be a clash between the thesis, represented by the hero, and the antithesis, represented by the villain. Mob Psycho's first season had some good subplots, the themes and discussions of which I actually found more interesting than the final big one. So, what is the final, epic, ideological confrontation in the end of Season 1? What important question is it discussing? Well, you better strap yourselves in because this one will blow you away. Ready? The big question it asks and seeks to answer is: are Nazis bad? You may be thinking I'm joking for comedic effect, but I'm not too far from the truth actually. You see, the main villains of Season 1 is an organization called Claw. Claw is a group assembled of people with psychic powers that seek world domination. Why? Because they are better than the regular humans who were born with worse genes, of course, without psychic powers. Does this ideology seem somehow familiar? Yeah, I thought so. The subplot and theme of not using one's superhuman powers against other people was discussed way better. Because Shigeo doesn't want to hurt people with his power, he transfers it to his powerless master, so he is taken seriously by his superhuman Nazi opponents and can talk sense into them. At least, the not-so-nuanced theme gets explored more by Shigeo striving to improve his physical and social skills and not rely on his superhuman abilities, and while doing so sets up some story beats in Season 2. Before we get to Season 2, let me summarize. The first season has interesting premises but ultimately focuses on the less interesting themes, while the fights fail to create tension due to the soft magic system. How does Season 2 address these issues? It introduces, at least sometimes, clearly defined limitations of combatants. The best example is the fight Reigen and Dimple versus the definitely not Hulk. And before you ask, yes, the same Reigen who is just a regular human. This fight establishes the goal of the combatants: save or kill the unconscious Shigeo respectively. Limitations are established because Reigen is a normal human being and Dimple can possess knocked out bodies and enhance their physical capabilities but not use their psychic powers. Also, their enemy is dumb as hell and can only use his psychic powers to enhance his own muscle strength. These changes transform the otherwise stale fight into something where the audience can hypothesize about what will happen and how the characters will use the resources at their disposal to achieve their goal. Will Reigen bullshit his way out of this situation? Will he use some sort of weapon? Will Dimple possess the unconscious Shigeo and run away while Reigen distracts the enemy? Even the resolution of the fight is very satisfying because the solution is established beforehand. Dimple enhances Shigeo's physical capabilities in the beginning, but it's not enough. When he possesses the president of the Body Improvement Club, a guy who is so jacked that he looks like he's been juicing since Capri-Sun, it makes sense that he can overpower his opponent because it's established beforehand that the power-up that is generated by psychic and spiritual powers is a finite improvement of the base strength. Hence, a stronger body can be improved more than a weaker one. This also resonates with one of the show's themes, that being a well-rounded person is better than being island talented. The bigger improvement in the second season was the thematic question it tried to answer with its final confrontation. Is it better to be a lone wolf who seeks power to consolidate one's own standing in the world, or to be an uplifting part of society who strives to better everybody around him? I know that this question doesn't seem that much more complicated than are Nazis bad? And I agree, it is not the study of a new philosophical trend, but a question doesn't need to be complex to be nuanced. Let me show you why. It is mainly discussed through 4 characters: Reigen, Suzuki, Shigeo, and Katsuya. They can be ordered in such a way that they mirror each other. The heroes and the villains each have a master and a disciple. Both masters use their disciples. Both disciples are very introverted and have little confidence. On the surface, both sides seem to be similar, but they in fact are polar opposite. Suzuki uses the low self-esteem of Katsuya to coerce him into doing his bidding. While Reigen too uses Shigeo for his own gains, he does this to shelter him from the mean and egoistic people in his life, also called middle schoolers. Their different approach to their disciples also manifests in Shigeo's and Katsuya's strategies in life. While Katsuya tries to blend in with the society around him no matter what, Shigeo first defines his own goal, which is mainly getting swole and less socially awkward, and then finds people that share this same goal or can help him achieve it. He even goes so far as to briefly distance himself from his role model and master Reigen, because he fails to acknowledge Shigeo's growth and becomes an obstacle for his personal growth. This is why Katsuya's friends use him, while Shigeo is empowered and supported by his friends. But the biggest ideological difference is still between Shigeo and Suzuki. Suzuki is a lone wolf, who lives by the principle that the strongest rule and uses his powers to manipulate everyone around him, but is in turn controlled by his own power. Shigeo, on the other hand, is an equalist. He firmly believes that every life is equally important, that psychic powers are the same as being, for example, musically talented, and especially are neither a weapon nor a reason to oppress people. He tries to control his own powers by being emotionally distant. So when they both clash, the fight is not just a fight between 2 dudes who go full Super Saiyan on each other, but it is a clash of ideologies. And funny enough, the fight's final is resolved not with psychic powers, but with the adherence to personal ideology. Yes, I know, Shigeo's final power spike that defeats Suzuki is caused by his need to fight on and protect his friends, and thus the fight is technically won with psychic powers, but it makes a clear statement about what ideology is superior. Shigeo's egoistic reasons don't give him enough power to win, but as soon as he thinks about his friends, he becomes strong enough. But this is just a resolution of the external conflict, and oftentimes stories end here. The hero defeats the villain, his ideology lives on, and the villain's ideology dies or is at least defeated with him. But Mob Psycho 100 goes the extra mile here. After the external conflict is over and Shigeo won, he is presented with a bigger problem. The energy of his opponent is about to be released and cause a massive explosion. He is faced with the option to kill him in order to stop the process, or run away and hope the explosion won't be too bad. Everybody who paid attention until now, of course, has realized that both options are in direct opposition to his ideology. He can't let the explosion happen because it could kill innocents, but he also can't kill Suzuki because he values every life. So he instead sits down with the soon to explode Suzuki and creates a barrier around both of them to contain the explosion, because he doesn't want him to suffer alone in his last moments. He is ready to sacrifice his own life for his ideology. This in turn moves Suzuki so much that he tries to safely discharge his energy into Shigeo, and by doing so creates an enormous broccoli. Yes, this show is weird. But the point is, Shigeo's adherence to his ideology moves his polar opposite so hard that he takes an action that he would have never taken just 5 minutes ago, and does something selfless and truly altruistic. Because he has no guarantee of survival even after discharging his energy, could lose all of his power and never cared for anyone but himself. Shigeo's ideology not only wins the external conflict and defeats Suzuki, and by proxy his ideology, it transforms Suzuki in such a way that he abandons his lifelong ideology. A more powerful statement than just beating the guy who you don't agree with until he shuts up. Oh boy, I really tried to keep this video short, and I tried so by not talking about Reigen's character growth and changes that allow Shigeo to go all out on his opponent, something that he wasn't able to do until the final episode, and so much more. Well, to summarize, a story can be improved objectively by presenting clear stakes, goals and options of every character, especially if it uses a soft magic system. Furthermore, establishing a theme and show a nuanced discussion of it can really elevate the story, the characters, and the narrative as a whole. Especially shows that, unlike movies, don't have to cramp everything into a 2-hour runtime, can go overboard with it and explore sub-themes and minor characters who will in turn enhance the final battle and resolution of the main theme's final conflict. I hope this essay could help you write better and compelling stories, and if not, I hope you at least enjoyed it. I want to thank Leon from When They Leave Us for mixing, mastering all the sound and providing me with his sound system to record this podcast. You can check out his work, it's linked in the description below, and see you sometime.